Okay, welcome back to the Kids Yoga Podcast. My name is Jessica. I am joined by Lara Hocheiser today. Lara, this is actually her third time on the podcast. So if you haven't already, definitely, if you enjoy this conversation, go back and listen to those as well. But if you don't know already, Lara is the owner of Flow and Grow Kids Yoga. She's also an author, and you can pre-order her book. It's coming out, I know, May 11th. I remember the date. That's my birthday. Oh, there it is. She's showing it to me. It's called Mindfulness for Beginners in 10 Minutes a Day. Go on Amazon, get in your pre-order. That helps the book to, bump up a bit, and right, that those pre-sales really help. So Lara and I are going to be discussing a lot today, but mainly we wanted to talk about how to apply yoga philosophy to the business of kids yoga. So Lara, welcome back.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm so grateful to be in your presence. You are somebody I love and respect, and I'm so grateful for your voice, amplifying the voices of so many people in this field. And when, like we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but when we were coming up in the industry, it was a total competitive place, and people didn't feel like there was room for them, and you have made room for them. And anyone I send your way, you make room for them. And I also learn about amazing people to follow because of you. So I just want anyone listening to recognize what an important role you're playing in the industry, just from your little neck of the woods. So thank you so much.
That means so much, Lara. And I'm going to tell everyone, Lara's outside recording. She's in Brooklyn, but it's just a beautiful day. And we're like, this is life. Let's be outside. So if you hear any background noises, that's what it is. It's life. So let's dive in. So I wanted to start, we were going to talk a lot about the yamas and niyamas specifically in yoga philosophy. So just for anyone listening who maybe isn't as familiar, can you just start there and kind of fill us in on what the yamas and niyamas are within yoga?
I would love to. So yoga is part of it, the Ashtangas, which is an 8-limb path, or an eight-limbed tree. And the primary two, the first two, which means in order of operations, of the most importance, and you're supposed to have these as a prerequisite skill prior to even breathing and moving, are the yamas and the niyamas. And that has been, that order was put forth by the sage Patanjali thousands of years ago, where he wrote down all of the wisdom of yoga that had been passed down orally from previous sages, from the Vedas and Upanishads. So the Yoga Sutras come to us kind of as the first written document explaining how yoga unfolds in human consciousness. And the first two, the yamas and niyamas, are the ethical restraints and the observances. So it's basically what not to do, and then how to be in the world. And so the yamas have 5, and the niyamas have 5 elements. And the yamas, and I think everybody kind of knows the first yama is ahimsa, but there are 5 of each. And what happens when you follow those ethical principles is actually it shapes your mind. And the most important thing to recognize is when you are not shaping your mind around ethical principles, and you learn to focus and meditate and study, and you increase your power, you are going to increase the negative aspects of the mind: jealousy, greed, all of these things. And you see very powerful people come into power on the planet who have learned to increase their focus and power and concentration in not so ethical ways. And we see that, and I'm not going to make any political statements specifically right now, but across the history of mankind. So the ethical principles help us every single day make decisions, and it takes away some of the weight of decision making, because we know who we are and we know how to make decisions. It's a framework for thinking. With kids that are little, I would say that it's like how to be a good person. And with older people, I'd say it's ethical principles that we can learn from. And when you really are able to do them day to day, it just takes off the pressure of having to be like, how do I make this decision? So I think it actually helps. And once you have these ethical principles down in your practice, then you can dive deeper into yoga and learn that deeper concentration.
Mm-hmm. I love how you I think a lot of us forget that those are actually the first two of the branches of yoga. I think there's a lot of focus definitely on the physical, also on the breathing, but the fact that what you're saying, it's like this is the groundwork that
Yep.
brings us to the practice, and how we share that with children is going to be different than how we approach it as adults, but it's just so important. So I want to talk about applying these specifically to the business of kids yoga. I've talked about on the podcast multiple times, and I've had guests come on talking about the toxicity that is in this industry, which is not solitary to kids yoga. It's everywhere.
Right. Every industry.
Right. So since it's in every industry, of course, it's within kids yoga, but it's just the irony to me that we are doing this work and then, that there are these issues within the industry. The positive for me is like people like you who are really changing that. And I think the important thing you're doing is the value of kids yoga. Like you're really focused on the value and how important it is. I think if we start there and we remember that, that's going to make a massive difference. So for you, like how do you go about applying the yamas and the niyamas within your experience as a business owner?
So one of the first things I would say is asteya, which is non-stealing, non-covetousness. First of all, you don't have to do what anyone else is doing. Take the pressure off of having to be where anyone else is. You don't have to copy or replicate. And if you do have someone as a teacher, like I have students all the time who accidentally step on my words. They'll use quote verbatim from my text in their flyers, or they'll use my imagery and they won't even recognize the need to say this was by my teacher. And I know they're not doing that on purpose, but the point is, say who your teachers are, honor the lineage you have, and don't steal anyone's business. There's room for you. And I think like when I lead my trainees through a course, I provide them tons of opportunities and concrete examples, and they're off and they're running and they're not fighting anyone else. And they are clear about who they are. That's why, that self-study, that self-knowledge, they all have their own skill sets. And so does everyone listening. That will make a unique kids yoga experience for a specific subset of people that need you, right? Like I have a student making a 200-hour special needs teacher training, and he knows how to like do feeding tubes and work with people with muscular dystrophy. And I can't do that. That's not my thing. I don't want to step on that. Like I want to amplify that. So by not stealing, by not coveting what others have. And then another piece I would say is just to use a himsa, true support, true mentorship. When you charge enough money that you can provide a service, right? Because I think a lot of people are having a race to the bottom with their services. They don't charge enough. And then, so say you're training teachers and they paid you rock bottom and you can't afford to give them your time and energy. Well, okay, we can learn how to get grant money so you don't leave out people who can't afford it. But beyond that, charge enough so that I have tons of special needs adults in my courses and they need me to handhold, and I do it because I don't take 60 people, I take 15 in my trainings. And I think when you are really thinking about kindness, love, and connection, unity, mentorship, the yoga way is like having a real teacher walk you through. Like you don't just get like 3 months and then bye. Like I am on the phone with all of my previous trainees. Like I've spoken to all of them via text, phone call, FaceTime in the last month. We're all very close because the relationship is at the heart of that. And the relationship, I think, first of all, we need relationship. Like I think there's so many trainings that are just like stamped by. So when they go out to make a business and they're running into their issues, everyone is there to support each other. So I think it's a himsa. And I think Satya, just being truthful, like I'm not the best teacher for that, right? Like somebody said, I really want to learn to work with kids with special needs. And I was like, I definitely teach an inclusive classroom, but I'm not an expert in that. Here are 3 experts that are potentially offering courses. You may want to look at those either instead or in addition to. So I think just being real with what you can offer, and then the students you pull in know what they'll be able to do, and they can serve the specific students that they're going to serve. So I really think that the whole yamas and niyamas is helpful. The final one I'll say is Ishvara Pranidhana, when you just surrender to the forces greater than you and you're like, you can't control what's going to happen in your business. You put all your energy and efforts in, and sometimes they're fruitful and sometimes they fizzle. And continuing to recognize your path, your calling, your direction, and take these kind of forces of nature that are larger than us in stride. And when you get knocked down, rest and come back when you're ready. But we can't like make it all about our personal failings. Like it's not just that. There's so much beyond you. So if for those of you who are feeling frustration in your business, I've been there. I'm there all the time. And I also feel a sense of purpose and calling driving me back when there are these challenges. And sometimes you just need to recalibrate.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think the biggest example of that for you was when the pandemic hit, and I know your business model completely shifted,
Crumbled.
right?
Yeah. I mean, everything I had been doing to earn money went away. School programming died immediately, and so did in-person trainings. And those were my two main revenue sources. So I had to like totally do everything again. And it was
Mm-hmm.
such a good thing for me because I am such a, like my position in the community needs to be of leadership now and of helping other people rather than just focusing on every single child, because we all go through evolution, and that's where I was, and I wasn't really ready to step into that until I was forced to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you said so much there that's so important. Something I want to add is like, so you've been at this for how long now? Since.
So I was started outside of, I graduated college in 2008, and I was doing Spanish immersion preschool then, and I was
Mhm.
doing mindfulness and SEL and yoga in my circle time. So really since then, but full time since 2011.
Okay. So you've been at this over a decade, and I know a lot of people are newer to this. It takes time and trial and error and making the mistakes and saying yes to the things that you wish you didn't say yes to,
Mm-hmm.
and working with a population that you're like, oh, maybe this isn't my specialty. It takes a long time to get to a point where Lara is, where you can then, which I think is so important, where you can then discern and say,
Yes.
for example, someone reaches out to you and you can say, you know what, I know about this topic, but I also know these three other people that are specialists in this, and let me
Mm-hmm.
refer you. So I just want to encourage the listeners. You might not be at that point yet where you're able to discern. Maybe you're at the point right now where you're saying yes to everything. I think that's valid.
Yes.
But over time, learn from your mistakes, learn
Mm-hmm.
from your rewards and your challenges, and it's like going through the mud. It's like you slowly start to figure out where your little niche is, and
Yeah.
there's room for everybody. There really is room for
Mm-hmm.
everybody.
It's so
And
true. But even like when people come through my courses now and they are like, I got this opportunity, it sounds way out of my wheelhouse. I'm like, well, do you really want to take that opportunity? Or is it going to take the energy and attention you need for a more fitting opportunity?
mm,
And sometimes it's important to, like, even at the beginning, we have this sense of like, I'm not going to get enough opportunities if I say no to this. But potentially you have to do some things that are outside your comfort zone to find your comfort zone or to find your specialty. Um, but if you have that thing inside saying, this is going to be too much work for the reward, or it's going to be such a stretch that it's going to take more than it gives back, because what we do gives so much back that it's like, okay, it was worth that output because of the input I got. But if
mhm.
you don't, and I know like we're yogis, we like to be in service, but the type of service you do should buoy you, should keep you uplifted. And
Mhm.
when we take the opportunities that pull us down, even at the beginning, I know sometimes it's like you kind of have to make those decisions, and discernment does come with experience. But if we start to use discerning eyes from the beginning, I would encourage everybody to just recognize when you're making a decision that is outside of what you suspect will be filling up you back up, and do those in small amounts.
Mm.
Don't take on a million opportunities that are going to cause so much extra work and extra worrying. um, because when you're new and even if you got an hour gig, you're going to spend hours thinking about it, like, so just
Mhm.
knowing that's part of it. I think just choosing better fits from the beginning will help people. That's what Gaia, I'm like looking in, I know me, I know where I am pulled, and I'm intentionally starting out in that direction. And of course there's no straight path, right? My path has been like, but
Yes.
I think that we can try to remember our trajectory because of our meditation, because of our concentration, because of our focus. And we've started with our ethical principles. We've started with our breath and our poses, and then we're starting to increase our concentration and focus. So when you actually have a personal practice, which should be prerequisite, but it isn't for everyone, right? A lot of us come because we love kids, and then we're like backtracking.
Yes.
So respect, high level of respect to those people, but you got to do it, put in the time, and then you're like catching yourself, you know? You can catch yourself.
Yes. Well, I love that. Looking back, so my experience in the industry, I was just so passionate about it. I was also in my 20s, and, I was young.
Probably broke.
Naive. Yeah, broke. Exactly. I was saying yes to everything because I didn't know exactly, I didn't know which way I was going. So I was saying yes to everything. But I was also at one point in a situation where I was very much pressured into situations, teaching situations that I really didn't want to be in. But I was given the message, like, I'm giving you this opportunity, like this, anyone would want this opportunity. And looking back, I feel such compassion for myself because, I really had the best of intentions, but guess what happened? I was overworked, burned out. Guess what happened? My appendix ruptured. And yeah, it was literally on a bodily level. My body was like, you're not slowing down. I'm telling you to slow down. You're not slowing down. Boom. Suddenly I'm getting my appendix out. And
I'm only laughing because I'm terrible, but I'm sorry that happened to you.
No, it was meant to be because I slowed down and I was like, what am I doing to myself? Like I am sick. So don't get to that point. Like I don't,
I relate to that so much.
Do you understand?
I got sick. I was working for another organization that I highly respect for like less than 2 months, but I could not be them. I couldn't teach in their methodology, and I had no control over my sites. And I was put somewhere that I have sensory processing issues. So in loud, bright places, I fail. I would never have put myself there. And I was sick. I would never sleep. I would have nightmares. I was sweating. I couldn't teach the kids in that place. It was the first time I can ever say I did a bad job. So when you talk about your body giving out, I was weak in the legs walking up the stairs to this classroom. I could barely physically muster it, and I failed. And it was because I didn't listen to everything my mind and body said. They were like, hello, here we are with wisdom and love. We love you. We want you to be, and I was like, I don't have enough. I have to take this opportunity. This is the only way. And it was not the way. So I have compassion for the past life, you and me, but maybe people listening can learn from that piece of us, that we sacrificed our well-being to attempt to like squash ourselves into the opportunities we thought were the only opportunities.
Right. It comes back to that self-study, right? Like being able to, if you're go, yes, but I'm getting it. My intuition's telling me no, but I'm going to keep going. If you're in that space, there's no time for that self-reflection. So I think that self-study, self-reflection, coming back to that quiet, like you said, it should be the prerequisite for this work, should be like that you have your own quiet, self-reflective practice. But yeah, I just encourage anyone listening. You might be in the situation right now. You might be listening and saying, I'm in that situation right now where I'm not doing exactly what it is I want to be doing.
Right. They're like, can you teach us circus yoga? And you're like, I don't even know what that means. Right. It's like, and we all get those wild phone calls for something that has nothing to do with our specialty and our, our credibility, like is on the line. That's also too, like you might be getting pressured from a mentor who sees potential in you, but it could also be from a business owner who just has no other option. And they are, and I even think they are not, I would say the vast majority of these people were not intentionally taking advantage. Because I know that that's a little bit where this conversation is coming from, where people are taken advantage of, but the business owner is expecting you to be a sovereign being that knows their own boundaries. And I'll just say that in defense of some of the people who have perpetrated against us unintentionally. I will say on a
Yes.
conscious level, they didn't mean anything by it. They
Hmm.
were like, this is an opportunity. And, but at the end of the day, those people's businesses grow and you're a piece in their business. And unless you're being made a partner or something, a lot of us making these major sacrifices for other organizations could maybe reconsider how much you want to spread yourself thin for somebody else's growth. And I'm not going to name names, but I see organizations that I really respect who had like second and third in line people. And when COVID hit, the only person at the organization that is in front of the camera and making money is that top person.
Hmm.
And so that's too bad, because if you're going to be sacrificed when times get hard, but you're sacrificing your health, yourself and your health and your personal trajectory, your attention, your energy, your life force energy, your commitment to your own self for somebody else's bottom line, whether it's the business's ability to grow and accommodate new clients or whatever it is. Really think about yourself in that equation, and will the experience actually be commensurate to the pay? And many of people are asked to volunteer,
Hmm.
and you've just paid all this money for your trainings, and you probably aren't in the position to even do that. So I would have people
Right.
consider, when you're asked to volunteer, is this a charity or is this somebody else's business that can't afford you?
Yeah. So, well, that brings me to the next topic I wanted to cover, which is just the basic differences between being an independent contractor and being an employee of a company. And I think a lot of us aren't very clear on that.
Right. This is so
And
important.
this is so, guys, listen. Yeah, Lara and I have like extensively texted about this, like with
All the
so much.
time.
Yeah, we're like, ah, but
We are on our
so
soapboxes
yeah.
like 3 days a week talking about this.
So there is a difference between being hired as an independent contractor and being hired as an employee, and there are certain pros and cons to each. But Lara, can you kind of just explain like what each is
I
and
would love to.
what they mean? Okay.
So an independent contractor is paid hourly for agreed upon gigs, right? So a lot of kids yoga teachers will get paid, say, like whatever amount of dollars to teach this class. Okay, that's an example of that. Under the umbrella of independent contractor, your employer cannot ask you to do any training. They cannot train you unless it's paid. They cannot require you to teach their curriculum. They can only provide it as a possible option. Um, and so, like, I think a lot of people break that. I think a lot of people ask for free time from those independent contractors. Come to this meeting, come to this training. Even if the training is free, it cannot be required. It can be optional. And I think that's a kind of symbiotic relationship where I've given tons of free training to Flow and Grow teachers. Back when we were doing a lot of kids yoga in schools, anybody who worked for me, if I had a training near them, I would include them for free, but they weren't required. So the employer can get huge penalties if they have the subcontractor. For example, the subcontractor can't be told when to work. So a workaround for this is the school or the camp chooses the schedule and the subcontractor agrees to it. It's work for hire. You can only, pay them for that time. And then an employee is you're not just getting paid for the hour you teach, right? So maybe you have a salary, and those people can be required to do trainings and meetings and all of that. But the employer matches what the employee pays into the taxes. Like we have to pay Social Security and stuff like that. Where when you're a subcontractor, you pay 100% for yourself. So your tax dollar in the U.S., your tax bill will be more as a subcontractor. Your employer will cover some of that 7.5% of that 15% of the Social Security we all pay. So there are perks to that. The vast majority of people are most likely subcontractors. I am an employee in my own business, and I pay myself a salary and I pay my own taxes and stuff like that. But all the people who work for me are work for hire. And even the people who've worked for me for many years, even my blog manager and my social media manager, they every time decide when they're going to work and when they can do meetings. And I might throw out a few times, but they're really in charge of their schedules. Everything's optional. like I have a college student who's one of my team members. So if she has finals, I can move responsibilities off of her plate. It's really more flexible, and that's how a subcontractor should be. Um, but I would say a subcontractor, like you might still have to take on a contract for a year. It's really bad for a business to have their teacher suddenly be gone in the middle of a semester. So one of the things employers need to realize, even if you pay subcontractors, pay them more than you think they are worth and charge more than you think you need to. Because if that person's breaking up their day to work for 1 hour, but it's taking them 3 hours to do it, you need to pay them 3 hours worth of labor. So, even when it sounds great, like, so say you make $40 an hour. Well, if you're paying your own taxes and everything, you're probably making $22 an hour. So you might need to get paid $100. And then the business owner has to charge more. And that's where the value of the actual yoga and mindfulness comes in, because people would never ask, schools pay a ton of money to have specialty programming. And there's no reason yoga and mindfulness should cost less. And the same thing privately. And now, of course, that comes into equity issues and things like that. But there is grant money available if you want to reach hard to reach populations, and that is what your heart wants you to do. Do it. So many of my teachers are going out and they're serving these populations with free money sitting in bank accounts. So we can access that. And as a subcontractor, you can still get big contracts in schools. You probably just need to get whatever the local like in New York, you have to be a DOE vendor, whatever that local permission is to work in schools. You can do that just as a subcontractor. You don't have to start up a whole business to teach or to teach for others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said, I think a majority of kids yoga teachers, if you're working for someone else, you're a subcontractor, an independent contractor. The benefits are that, yeah, you make your own schedule. You could say no to things. You aren't required to go to trainings, but you might get free trainings that you might want to go to, right? So you are getting, so it's just important to know the difference. And when you get a contract from a business, have a lawyer read the contract and explain it to you if you don't understand it, just so you understand what you're getting into when you're
and
signing
one of the
something.
most important things you should do, whether you're working with a school or a yoga business, have them explain their contract to you. So I've actually had some great so when I was coming up in the industry, I worked for Abby Davy Steinbecker of My First Yoga, and she explained her contract to me. It was a really legally jargon heavy contract. She's like, all it means is for 2 years after stopping at a location, you won't try to take that school. And she told me that people had tried to take her schools in the past, that you will wear the t-shirt when you go to the site that says My First Yoga, and that you will be punctual and just appropriate and professional. It was all extremely reasonable. And 2.5 years after I stopped working for her, one of my sites that loved me, that I had worked for under her, reached out to me. And even though the contract was over, I just said, hey, I wanted you to know these people reached out to me personally. And just because I didn't legally need to do that, but I let her know these people are interested in working with me. And I don't want to, I think that's a part of being part of a community and the honesty and communication that people deserve.
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of is just, again, keeping in mind what you said earlier, that there's enough for everybody. But so there's also a balance with that, where you have your own knowledge, intellectual property, everything that you're offering. So you're not just giving it away, right? There's a balance, but you're also not grasping onto it. So you're not. Right. So how do you as a business owner find that balance? Because I know I've had have experiences that people reach out sometimes. They're like, hey, so can you tell me how to market my classes and how to start a business? And I'm like, it's they're just expecting, I'm not sure, all this labor for free. How do you find that balance where you're so giving hard. And not, it's so hard.
Well, here's the thing is I am truly friends and family with everybody who comes through my 95s, because we spend 3 months together, and all of them I've talked to for 30 to 45 minutes over a Zoom call before we even start. There's a real family camaraderie. So if they ask me a question and I have the energy, I'll tell them, but I'll also say, listen, I've got an S storm of crazy in my life right now. I cannot handle another thing. Why don't you ask this in our community group? Because like the hive mind can help. Also, like in My 95, there's a business module. So people seem pretty ready to go out. And I have like one person in my current cohort who's constantly asking for business advice. And I'm like, can you please wait till we get to the business module and see if it gets answered? Because I'm writing a book. I'm launching a book. Like, you know, I'm in the middle of writing my second book. I'm leading this course. So I need to have these boundaries up. Simultaneously, I used to actually do, and I may start doing it again, coaching for my trainees where they could pay a certain number of dollars per month for a 30-minute call, and they could just ask me anything, or they could make SMART goals. It was kind of like your typical coaching with much more flexibility based on what their goals were. So it wasn't like you have to do SMART goals and report back. It was like, do you need SMART goals or do you need my ear? Because a lot of time they would just tell me what was going on, and I could be like, well, that sounds like a red flag, or hey, can you ask this question? And so having somebody like that, I think you should pay for people's time. People listening, just recognize that someone like me or Jessica, who have spent our entire adult lives working in this industry, our time is very valuable, and we are extremely generous people. We are extremely compassionate people, and it's very hard for us to keep that boundary up. So you could even say, I'll pay you for your time as an offering, and then we can say great or not, you know, like at least acknowledge that there is a service being provided. But yeah, I do think there's a little bit of, you know, some people also get taken advantage of, getting pulled into like $4,000 coaching programs when they just needed an hour or two of advice. So find your balance there. A lot of great people in this industry want to help you. But I think before you go into a coaching situation, really get to know your coach and make sure that person has the bandwidth. Because if you pay into a coaching thing and they've got like a million people, you may find that you're still on your own a little bit or feeling that way. So I think value your people's time. And for us, we need to know when to say, I'm drowning, can't, or that's just not something I have time for. Or it's like a question you're so excited about. And a lot of times I'll like just drop a video into my Flow and Grow group and say, hey, one of our people had this great question. I think everyone would benefit from it. Or I'll ask, if it's someone from my cohort, I'll say, ask me that in class, and then other people can benefit from it. So if you are already a leader, you can find ways to put it into your prepaid time. But I am very guilty of giving away my time and energy. But at this point, I'll say this, my people give so much back to me. Like yesterday, I opened the mail and I had $100 worth of Juice Plus products from one of my students, because she said that she heard me talking about not liking my vitamins. And like I get presents in the mail every week. Like, so at this point, I feel that my students acknowledge how much extra I give them. And not that I need presents, but I recognize that their cards, their text messages, their video testimonials, those are the rewards I'm getting from them. So if you do want to give away a little bit of free advice, you can then leverage and say, can you please send me a video about how helpful this was? And that's a way you can get kind of paid back. So yeah, I know that was a long-winded answer, but those are my answers.
I think the thing is, it's like, if, first of all, some people that reach out to me like haven't done a training yet, and they're asking me all these questions that are covered in a training. So I'm like, well, sign up for a training. And I know, you know, so many great ones. And, you know, so first of all, like do a training first, find the right training for you that's going to cover.
Find your teacher.
Yeah, find your teacher. And then once you're within a training, you're going to have a community of people. And then it's different, I think, asking a teacher that you've worked with, that you've had exchanges with, versus just like reaching out to like someone you don't even know. And so, yeah, it's a tricky balance. And I think,
well, if you get enough people asking that, you could do like a masterclass type thing where everybody pays $25 for an hour, and you're just like, here's the main questions I get. So I think just other people like Jessica, who are more experienced getting these questions, you can find a way to add value and to get paid back, and to like pull these people together, because then all these like-minded people are now with the same question brought together.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is crazy when people are like, how do you I mean, I have so many people reaching out to me that want to do my course, like in France and in, you know, and they want to start a yoga school and they don't have their 200, and they're like, can I do it with my 95? I'm like, you can, but how is your yoga practice? And how, like, do you
Right.
want to be registered with the Yoga Alliance or not? Like all these things. And then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
sad face, I can't be registered with the Yoga Alliance. I'm like, you can, but you would have to also have a 200.
Right.
And you should want to have the bare minimum training if this is your job. I mean, to me, it's most of my students that don't have a 200 go off to get them.
Yes.
But people have a hard time investing in something
I know
before
it's
they have
hard.
money
It's
from it. But
intimidating. Yeah.
everybody went to undergrad. Everybody got their in this
Right.
culture, like in the West, people get their undergrad, they go, that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can't spend maybe 5 to 10 on your full yoga education. Like,
Right.
I think when you are willing to invest, and if you don't have the means, help your yoga school of choice find a grant and you guys write it together. I have actually had people text me to say, can I take your course for free? I haven't worked in 2 years. I said, totally, send me your email. We're going to work on getting a grant for you. Air radio silence. They just want it for free, but they don't want to do anything. If you want a free education and you have a business willing to help get a grant, that business can't afford to teach you for free. They can't, because we live in a capitalist society in an expensive world. People need to charge, but you can partner with them and get the grant. Help the people help you. That's the thing that drives me crazy. Like, let yourself get helped.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all energy exchange. It's like, it's all about that. Well, coming back to like where we started, the yamas and the niyamas, I did want to ask you, out of all of them, I know they're all so interrelated, but is there one of them that over this past year where your business just like completely flipped and changed that you feel really helped you get through it?
I would say the first yama and the last niyama. The last niyama is Ishvara Pranidhana, which is surrender to God, or surrender, basically. I had to surrender what I was gripping onto. I had to let go to make space. And I'm so, so, so grateful from the bottom of my heart that everything changes and the forces of nature were like, this will change. And the mourning and letting things pass away and feeling the depth of your heart with that. It doesn't mean that you won't feel, right? I grieved and then I moved forward. And I know we're going to talk about Santosha, but I would say contentment and ahimsa, just the compassion for myself and others. People had a really hard time getting to the 95. Sometimes their family was going through hard times or whatever, like just having compassion for them, for myself, for all the anxiety I felt, not believing in myself the first couple times I led the course, even though people were loving it, like just feeling like, am I good enough? And giving myself the love and attention and time I needed to get used to something new. And the Santosha, being content, like I feel such a sense of clarity that this is what I need to be doing. So letting enough be enough. If things are perfect or not perfect, it's enough. And the sense of like, I lived in Costa Rica during college, and they would always say like, tranquilo, like calm, like, like everything's chill. And like, I feel that now. Like I cannot control everything. So there's a sense of like, this is fine, allowing. And daily meditation has really, really helped that.
Yeah.
Really helped that.
I've the last month I've gotten back into the daily meditation. It's definitely life changing.
Oh yeah, we were texting about that. I was like,
yes.
I'm dead, I'm dying, my brain doesn't work, and you're
I know. I'm like, you're like, how do you meditate with your kids in the house? And you were like, I'm like, I just sit up in bed. I just right away.
I lay in my bed and do it, because if Charlie hears me sit up, she comes in.
Even that,
Now she knows I'm listening to a meditation and will stand outside my door until the second her clock turns green.
Oh.
But I'm doing it. I'm doing it even though it's not perfect. I'm doing
exactly.
the meditation.
Well, how have you found that Santosha, that contentment in being where you are? Is it through your personal practice that you're able to find that?
I mean, I have to say, my teacher has been so helpful. I've been working with a yoga therapist, and just everyone needs a teacher, no matter how much experience you have. She's really become a personal friend. Leslie Tomlinson, H2O Therapeutics. She's amazing yoga therapist. I have been listening to a Yoga Sutras podcast, which you have in the show notes. Absolutely life-changing. Talking to Anna Hansen of Sedona Kids Yoga about the Yoga Sutras, deep dive into the dorky academic depths of the scripture. Truly diving back into my practice. Writing my mindfulness book was like such a big boost, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm telling everyone else to do this stuff and I'm like floundering. So even in the process of writing it, I just started to have, oh yeah, I forgot about this. And oh yeah, there's like 52 activities in that book or something, or 60. And I'm like, these are all things I know and teach. The other piece is actually teaching it. The joy of transmitting the knowledge. Like, I would say contentment for me creates joy, and joy creates contentment. And it's like, I've had a lot of personal tragedy and major systemic change going through my family and personal life. And despite how destabilizing it's all been, I feel like everything is okay. Everything is changing. The gunas, the braiding of the forces of nature, everything will change. And I can embrace that. So that has really just been like tear me open, but build it back up. And yeah, it's just,
yeah. Isn't it awesome that like
here.
what I know, but isn't it amazing like what we're teaching children and what we're teaching adults to teach children is then what we're using to take care of ourselves, right? I just think I just love that. I feel very lucky that my career path and what I'm doing is tied into exactly how I take care of myself too.
And how you raise your family.
Yes.
It's like, it's really part of everything. And that to me has been so exciting, because I used to see yoga woven through my entire life. And then about 5 years ago, that all changed. And I'm starting to really feel that again. And diving back into personal practice is such a delight. I really want that for everybody listening, that they have their own relationship. Because if you're just like, oh, I've been to 25 yoga classes, I could be a yoga teacher, that is such a drop in the bucket. Like, the sages study for 50, 60 years every day. Like, you have more to gain. You do.
This is it's a lifestyle. It's not just
It's
a class.
It's life. It's the science of wellness. It's the science of knowing yourself. And I know people want to call it a pseudoscience, but when you feel things out of balance and you put them back in balance, how is that not that observation, that self-study to figure out how to put things back in balance, to be attuned to nature and like eating the right stuff? I mean, all of it to me makes perfect sense how it is medicine. But we are in a Western world and people look at medicine very differently. But I truly feel this has like continued to save me over and over and over. So I'm very grateful to my teachers and to the practice.
Well, I want to, before we wrap up, I do want to hear about your book. So it's so exciting. You're an author. I know you're writing your second book. You have it. Oh, it must be so amazing to hold it in your hands. So tell me about
to hold it.
Yeah, tell me about it and the process of writing it. And
okay, so my best friend died, and 3 days later, I got asked to submit a writing sample on a mindfulness book for beginners. And I was like, oh my God, universe, what are you doing? But that the process of writing it through the my best friend and I shared a practice and like really dove in together. So it was such a beautiful way to honor her life and
yes,
get back to my practice. So the book it's no barriers. Anybody can do it. It's really easy. I took some mindfulness trainings that I couldn't even do like 5 years ago, like 15 years into a practice, because I didn't have the stillness that it required. So this book doesn't have any prerequisite skills. All you need to be able to do is read and have a few minutes. It's practices for morning, day, and evening. So for busy people, if you can find it, everything's under 10 minutes. You can pick something, spend 5 or 10 minutes creating a sanctuary, learning to ground, learning to center, learning to send compassion to yourself and others, just really basic practices. It's yoga and it's mindfulness. There's a little bit of chakra stuff in there. But every activity is under 400 words. It's very accessible. And it's written in honor of my best friend and in honor of all of my teachers. So the cool thing about it is like every teacher I've ever had, I carry with me, and they're all here. So everybody gets the benefit of like all of those people. So it was just such a labor of love.
Wow. I didn't realize that just 3 days after she died, that this is when you were approached. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, I was up against 21 other authors, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this. They first approached me to write the kids' book, and I was like, totally. And then they said, actually, we're going to have you write the kids' book later, which I'm working on now. It's a mindfulness for kids 5 to 7. But they said, we need this sooner because that's what everyone's desperate for during COVID. And somehow my sample was favorited for both books. Actually, I was up against a bunch of authors for the second book too. And I think it's because I really think and feel like from the bottom of my heart that things should be accessible. Accessibility is so important to me. Plain English, compassion. That's how I speak. That's how I write anyways. So just having had a daily writing practice for people like, oh my God, you got a book deal. It's so cool. You can't wait to get the book deal to start writing. You have to do it now. You have to do it now. Don't wait. And for people that want to be mindful, like don't wait. Like the book is so easy to read. It's a 2-hour read, cover to cover. Because I've had all of my endorsers were able to read it in one day. And I'm really proud of what I'm getting back from my endorsers. And so it's on pre-sale. People who order before the pre-sale ends will get their book by May 11th. And it's, I don't know when this podcast comes out, but either way, Jess will put the link in the show notes. It's called Mindfulness for Beginners in 10 minutes a day. Mindful moments to bring clarity and calm to your morning, day, and night. And it would mean the world to me to see people reading it and starting to make incremental daily changes. That's all I want for people. I don't need you to be a monk on a cushion. I just want you to be yourself and take that time that you deserve.
Yeah, it feels very doable, even as a busy mom in a pandemic. I'm like, I could see myself just flipping open to one of the activities to a page and doing that. So,
and they did such a cute job. Like if just it's so beautiful. They did such a good job beautiful. On the design, and it's like an the kind of book you would grab in the airport bookstore, and it is available wherever books are sold. So I'm excited to see it in the bookstore at the airport in a couple weeks, hopefully when I go on a trip. And
well, that's so amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You deserve all the success. And is there anything else before we wrap up that is happening with Flow and Grow that you wanted to mention?
Oh, thank you for asking. So my next 2 cohorts for the 95-hour teacher training are coming up. This June 22nd to August 19th is a summer training, which will be in Eastern hours from 11 to 3, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for the summer. So people in Europe and people in the West Coast should be able to attend. And then in the fall, I'm doing it evenings, Tuesdays and Thursday nights for the 95. So there'll be 2 chances to get that. A lot of school districts are sending people to try to have a sustainable mindfulness program. So if there's any school personnel listening, districts can get money from grants and send you through the program, and you can start to make a difference on the ground. There's a lot going on in Flow and Grow. We have been really conscientiously putting out tons and tons and tons of free content on yamas and niyamas on the blog. And so we have a huge, in the pipeline, we have just so much coming out to just give you practical daily advice on how to learn about the yamas and niyamas and implement it in your work with kids. And we're also going to be doing a really cool storytelling. So we're going to be launching a campaign about 10 of our recent Flow and Grow graduates and their career trajectories and what they're doing. So I just want to shine light on all the people who come through and what the amazing ways they're changing their community. So do look out for all those blogs and newsletters that are going to be coming out yeah, and if anybody wants to get in touch, you can email me through the website. I've got, Instagram and Facebook and everything. So please don't be shy to reach out anytime.
Great. Lara, thank you so much. Third time on the podcast, you'll be on again. I know we could talk, we could talk for thousands of hours.
I
But
know.
thank you so much for being on and for sharing all of your wisdom.
Thank you, Jessica, for having the podcast, got a motorcycle, for having me, and just for your friendship. I really value you and I love you.
I love you too. All right.
Hi,
Have a good
guys.
rest of your day. Bye, everyone.